Guys, I swear I was gonna start 2026 with some grand, beautiful project. Instead, I mean, you guys saw the thumbnail. Hello, I'm Miss Twisted. You can call me Charlotte. I do crafting, costumes, and other weird and whimsical stuff. And I want to make a knight in shining JARMOUR. A jite. A janite? This idea came from two things. Firstly, I'm just really tickled by the meme of like things made of denim that really shouldn't be denim. What if we kissed on the jouch? This lampshade or jam shade? You get the idea. Secondly, I was watching Hazariel's video on medieval inspired streetwear, and like the goddess Athena herself, the idea of a denim knight sprung fully formed from my head. So jumping straight in, we have two main ingredients for this one. Starting with the obvious, a buttload of blue denim. I went to my local op shop, that's thrift store for my US folks, and went straight to the clearance section. This is 7 pairs of jeans and 2 jackets. They were $2 each. Part 1, done. Oh, that didn't work so well. Second big one, a ton of EVA foam, and huge shout out to Lumin's workshop for all this. I literally pitched this idea as, hey Lumins, I'm making something incredibly stupid. Do you want to give me some foam? Yeah, that does sound incredibly stupid. Let's do it. That totally accurate reenactment aside, I've got a bunch of different thicknesses and types here that are going to serve different purposes on the armor. More on that later. For now, we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. So, let's do some leg armor. Alright, I'm going to start off with what I hope is an easy part, which is creating like a sort of armored boot plate just on this front section here. And I don't think I need to do like a pattern just yet. Sorry guys, I think I'm just going to kind of guesstimate and see what that looks like when I stick it together with some spare paper. Maybe if I kind of do like a mock draping. Let's see if that works. Kind of like something like that. Okay, I trust my ability to wing it enough to get straight into the foam. This is the OG high density foam, so it's your good all-rounder stuff. It's dense, it's gonna be quite durable, but it's not like so hard that you won't be able to curve it and shape it. Alright folks, we are gonna be cutting a lot of EVA foam in this video. My tool of choice is a hobby knife or Stanley knife with a sharp, fresh blade. Seriously, the sharper, the cleaner cut you're gonna get. And if I'm holding my hand weird in some of these shots, it's because I'm trying to cut on a bit of an angle to create like a beveled edge. It just looks a little bit neater in some parts and can help with when you're gluing pieces together and want a certain angle. Guys, I think this is like the neatest cut of EVA foam I've ever done. And that really annoys me because this whole thing's gonna get covered up in denim anyway, so you won't even appreciate it. We are gonna give these foam pieces a gentle roasting with the heat gun, just enough that the surface gets a little bit shiny and it gets soft and malleable, so I can kind of curve it a little bit over the shoe. And as that cools down, it should hold its shape. My shoe pieces are looking nice and curved, so it's time to glue these together, and for that, I need contact adhesive, and for that, I need ventilation and space outside. So I have like one tiny sad slab of concrete out the front of my garage because I'm moving house right now, so the rest of the garage is just full of stuff and boxes. I probably didn't need my mask for this one. I mean, there's plenty of ventilation. We're literally outside, but it's a good habit I'm keeping. Tiny thin layers of contact adhesive on both sides here, left it a few minutes to get really tacky and almost completely dry, and then you mush this together because it should bond pretty much instantly. Melbourne is super hot and dry this time of year, so this takes like no time at all for us. Okay, pretty decent fit. Not the neatest seam if you look too close, but you're not going to see that, it's going to get covered in denim. I'm kind of loving this little wrinkly bit here where it's discolored from like behind the knee. So I cut into this. For most of this, I'm using my quick dry like fabric glue just because I can use it inside. It's non-toxic. I don't have to wear like a massive mask and have ventilation and stuff like that. Plus, it sticks pretty well between fabric and foam. So kind of want this piece here, please. And I've stuck it on a bit of a diagonal because that way it's on the bias. There's a little bit of stretch that's going to help me accommodate over that curve. Like that. And then I should be able to kind of just fold the edge over a little bit. And then what if the next layer is like this little bit here? So you get that sort of top stitching showing through and then finishing there and you get some color variation. Oh, this is so stupid, I love it. Now, I might be late to the party on this, but these little pegs I'm using to hold it down while the glue dries, these are Wonder Clips, and they are fantastic. How did I ever live without these? Alright folks, we are off and running. It doesn't look really like anything yet. I think once the time I do the legs, it's gonna start to look like something. So trust the process with me, let's move on. At this point, I'd already packed my measuring tape for the move, so my very meticulous way of like measuring my leg for the shin armor was literally to just put my leg on the table and roughly mark out how long my shin is. As to the shape of this piece, I don't really have an explanation, I just kind of guesstimated a shape that I think would work, and I'm pretty good at guesstimating at this point. I cut 4 of these, 2 for each leg, hopefully with like an edge running down the center of each leg. With a bit of a warming and a curving, I'm going to glue those 2 pieces together and see how this goes. Actually, this piece is a great example of how the beveled edge might work because I've cut this middle seam here on a bit of an angle on both sides. It's easy for that edge to really show up nice and sharp through the middle there, as opposed to a perfect right angle where it would sit much more flat. I had to open it again at the top to leave enough room for my knee, and then of course it's time for the deniming, which is what I'm going to call it every time. I'm so sorry. One of my jeans pairs had this beautiful texture and crease lines, which I really loved. It just added a lot of dimension to these. Even this early on in the project, I don't know, I'm getting like a newfound appreciation for like the textures and lines and trims of denim. Alright, shin guard's looking good. I've left it kind of unfinished at the top because I decided as I was making this, I want like a kneecap, I think. I think they might actually be called knee cops when it's armor. Someone correct me in the comments. I'm once again guesstimating my armor shapes here, but I have previously used a lot of Kamui Cosplay's armor patterns, which I highly recommend. I'll chuck a link to those down in the description below. My main thing I want from this is something that's going to wrap around my knee a little bit, still have that sort of edge running down the center, and that just kind of curves around my kneecap, so it kind of cups it. Maybe they should call them knee cups and not knee cops. Oh yeah, and I threw together these very simple little back plates. It's going to sit on the back of my legs, where the shins are. The calves! That's the word, right? Foot plates, greaves, back calf armor, I don't know what you call it, and a knee piece. Right now they're just not attached to anything, but I'm all done for the day. I got stuff to go do, so tomorrow we're gonna figure out how to put all this stuff together. Probably gonna be some Velcro or elastic involved. I don't know, that's tomorrow's problem. See you guys later. Good morning, folks. Day 2. I know I said that I need to put those pieces together so that they're actually wearable. I don't feel like doing that first thing this morning. I think I'm going to try and like work my way up and make some tassets instead. Basically, they're the kind of skirt-like bits that go over the thighs. And I think once all of that's done, then we can try and put them together, because that way we can basically see what the entire bottom half looks like, and whether or not I'm actually doing anything here or whether it just looks sad and weird. Alright, size-wise, I think it kind of needs to be like mostly just kind of over the thigh like this. So I want it like that wide? Yeah. Alright, I'm just gonna kind of cut what I think is the shape that I want. I'll just guesswork here. Alright, so I think they're kind of supposed to look like this. That's pretty much it, and I'm gonna make it a little bit wider. There's gonna be like 3 panels on each side coming down. I'm gonna shut up and make it, and you guys can see what I mean. Okay, I've just had an idea. Up till now, I've been trying to use just like the big plain bits of denim. So I've got all these bits where it's like just the butts left. I've just got lots of butts. And so there's all these pockets. I reckon the tassets feel like the place where I have to put the classic back pockets. I don't know, that just feels like the vibe. I think part of my motivation here was also just that like I really have this instinct to not want to waste any of my materials. In this case, there is no shortage of denim in op shops. They cannot get rid of that stuff fast enough, but I still want to be able to throw out as little of this as possible. Plus, it looks kind of cool. Time for some more gentle roasting of the foam because I kind of want this to curve a little bit while it sits around my thigh. Oh, guys, that that worked too well. All right, I overdid that. Let's, oh no. Whoops. Going for a gentler curve this time worked very well, and layering up a couple of these with like some slightly different shades and colors of denim. Oh, guys, this looks so good and so stupid. All right, tassets, done. Looking good. Legs are now fully covered, in theory. I do have to start actually attaching them now. I'm gonna start from the tassets downwards. I don't know why, just because I'm already here. So I was thinking like some sort of belt that they sort of hang off. And guess who's got an overabundance of freaking waistbands right now, like from 8 different pairs of jeans to choose from? So I'm going with this waistband. It seemed to be the biggest pocket that I had attached to all of the jeans. I know I've got like the tassets covered in pockets, but like, let's be honest, these are going to be decorative pockets. But I can stick this over that pocket, and that way I've always got somewhere to put like, you know, phone and keys at least. So at the top where there's no foam, I sewed this to that waistband, leaving a little bit of a gap in between for the pocket, and I sewed another pocket on the top of that to cover that raw edge where I had to leave a hole so I can access the pocket. Tasset's done, and you know what I realized, guys? I have basically turned 1, 2, 3, 4 real pockets, turned them into fake pockets because none of these are usable now, all to hide the one real pocket in here. So, yeah, that's something. Well, good morning, folks. I truly thought that I'd finish off the legs in one day, but I guess I forgot that the tasset involves like 6 different pieces and then attaching it to a belt. Anyway, we got to do the legs. We've got a bunch of strips of literally just offcuts of the jeans that I've glued into these sort of strips here. They're going to go around the back of my shin, the calf, and just kind of hold it onto my leg. I could look at glues and velcros, but I think for this bit, because it's going to take a bit more tension, I'm going to attach it with some rivets and some snap fasteners. Usually, this would be the bit where I get really excited about my grommet press. It's one of my absolute favorite tools for cosplay. Sadly, it has already been packed. Luckily, I do still have like some snap fastener kits around. We just have to do it manually. All right, I've got to punch some holes in here. I really miss my grommet press. That was not fun at all. Now, since this is 5mm thick foam and I didn't really want to completely squish the foam down with rivets, I've changed my mind. I'm using some Chicago screws, which are basically just like you screw 2 parts together to hold things together. I don't know how else to explain it. They're very useful. This is probably not even how you're supposed to use them, but it works. The other side's getting snap fasteners so I can easily attach these on and off. Luckily, most of the kits you buy for these come with all the instructions and all the bits and pieces you need. The calf plate got slapped on with some glue and rivets. It's not holding any tension, so I'm not that worried about it being super strong. Now the knee and shin section are getting a hole punch through both pieces of foam and a much longer Chicago screw holding those two together. That way this knee section's going to be able to hinge a little bit. And I didn't film much of these 2 steps, but I made myself some thigh plates and kind of like a little tabard piece that sits in the middle of my legs. My first instinct is to call this a loincloth, but that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like dignified enough. But when you see it all on together, you can kind of see the vision, right? Guys, my favorite part of any project is reaching that sort of tipping point where you've done just enough of that project that you can see, like you can envision the final product and know that yes, this is going to work. Especially satisfying with projects that are particularly ambitious or particularly stupid like this one. Motivated by that feeling, I am jumping straight into the braces, which I'm not so confident enough that I'm going to cut it straight into the foam. So I am making myself a cereal box mock-up first. Still, I was pretty happy with the shape, so we're just going to start covering this one with more jeans. You guys know the drill at this point. I'm finding more and more as I go that I'm really enjoying adding like the trims and hems and seams as decoration on this project. Anywho, we're doing a nice efficient method for attaching these to my arm. A big strip of the denim is just going to wrap around and attach with some Velcro, which is sewn in. The braces have 3mm foam, so it's just thin enough that my sewing machine can get through it. Okay guys, good morning. Bottom half of this weird project is done. Everything up to the waist is done. I even did the braces because I'm procrastinating starting the breastplate. I feel like procrastinating a little bit longer because the breastplate is slightly intimidating, so we're going to do gauntlets. I mentioned in my last couple of videos that I'm in the process of moving house. That is still happening. It just spread out over time because of like weird reasons in terms of when people were available to book for the house. It's not interesting. The interesting part is that I've forgotten to leave any fabric here, so all my fabric is already at the new place. I did have an old t-shirt that I was going to donate to a op shop, which I have cut up and sewed into gloves. I have skipped over exactly how to sew gloves. It's basically you get 4-way stretch fabric and you like trace your hand over like a turkey. You sew along those lines, you cut it out. Look, I'll put some tutorials up here so you guys can learn from someone who knows what they're doing. That gives me a nice base that I can stick all my bits onto for the gauntlets. And this is going to be the start of my gauntlet. I've got like a sort of cuff thing around here, and that's going to go on the back of my hand. Is there like a word for the opposite side of your palm? Like the back of your hand? Does that have an actual anatomical word? Anyway, that's gonna get glued on like that. I'm gonna cover this in denim. Now I've got to make a ton of individual little thingy parts, and I have no idea what I'm doing with this one. I'm not going to follow a tutorial. I'm just going to kind of guesstimate a shape that's going to cover each section and see how it goes. At least most of the armor pieces up to this point, I had a rough idea of what I was doing. This was purely vibes-based cosplay. I had no idea. I was just kind of guesstimating shapes. These knuckle pieces had this seam down the center, so they had a bit of a curve, which seemed to work alright. Enough that I did that even more for the fingertip pieces, so it would kind of curve around the end of the finger. I was tempted to do big claw hands, but I am going for knight and not like evil spirit, so I resisted that urge. Alright, so they're not my favorite part of the costume so far. They look a little awkward, but like, I mean, I'm making a jeans knight. It doesn't have to be perfect. Anyway, I can't really procrastinate anymore. I kind of need to do the breastplate, so let's figure that out. Okay, this foam is Foam Light. It's a little bit more flexible than the foam I've been using so far, which is the original high density. It's going to be light and it's going to give me a little bit of flex, especially through my middle, around my torso, where I'm going to need it the most, probably. Now, in terms of patterns, obviously so far I've been kind of winging it, but I have been taking some inspiration from Kamui Cosplay's patterns, and this one's probably going to be about the same. I think I'm going to do like a combination of eyeballing that, looking at how I did Chakra's breastplate, and then just kind of, I guess it counts as draping? I'm gonna hold this up to my chest and draw some lines on it and hope that that works. I know I like to say feral crafting. That's mostly about giving things a red hot go, even if you don't 100% know what you're doing, but I would recommend doing a mock-up before you cut into your good foam. I just happen to be pretty good at guesstimating at this point, just because I've been doing it for years. Anywho, shape-wise, I want this to look a little bit androgynous, so while I do want it to curve around the chest and look quite sleek, I'm not going for like, you know, booby plate armor, the, you know, early 2010s video game style shapes. Okay, this definitely would have been easier if I followed a pattern right from the start, but we're getting somewhere, and I'm not terrible at guesstimating these things at this point. So anyway, this is kind of how it's sitting. I think I underestimated my length. I was not planning on this being a crop top, but I'm thinking that like that's where all of the, I guess, curves needs to be around there. So I'm thinking like to lengthen a little bit, I'll just have like an entire separate piece that kind of comes down underneath. Time for some more deniming, of course. So the entire bottom strip here is getting covered with one piece. For the top piece here, I'm going to use this like thigh section because the actual seam has a bit of a curve to it already, kind of like to accommodate the curve of a thigh. So I'm hoping it'll help me like smooth down over this curve in the middle of the chest. I've cut some separate sections to go right on the side under my arm. Now, for the back where it holds together, I got especially lazy and scrappy. I've basically sandwiched some elastic in between some pieces of denim, sewn that down one side. I punched a bunch of holes on the other side before I remembered I don't have my grommet press because it's packed, so a bunch of these belt loops are now like little loops that I can pull the elastic through. Some more fancy trim and an extra piece of foam right at the top here, basically just to bring the neck protection higher up. And we're pretty much done. Okay, breastplate pretty much done. Sitting nicely at the front. At the back here, basically I've got these little elastics that I can pull through those tabs there to tighten. And then I'll probably be able to like tie those up, keep it nice and snug around me. If you're wondering why I'm using these like wonder clips at the end, it's because I have a bunch of like toggle style beads. They're already packed. Anyway, moving on to some shoulders. So for the shoulders, I'm definitely doing a mock-up, and that's because I'm not very confident with the shoulders, so I want to make sure I'm 100% on like the shape and size of them before I cut into my foam. For the shape, I'm kind of loosely basing it off Kamui Cosplay's Paladin pattern. I'm not following the pattern directly, I'm just kind of like eyeballing what the shapes look like and trying to recreate it myself. But that is where you can find the pattern if you want to try and make your own. Looking over the pattern properly was a huge help for this one, but I will say corrugated cardboard is not a fun time when you're trying to make a mock-up of like a curved thing. After all, this stuff is designed to like not curve or not bend, like it's designed to stay as flat as possible. But with a little bit of finagling, we still kind of got there. For this one, we're back to the original high density foam, as it doesn't really need to flex very much on my shoulders. And then of course, we are back to my sad slab of concrete at the front of my garage. Alright guys, so I've got to say, where the frick do I keep putting my glasses? Hang on. I took them off so I could fit my respirator over me. That's what I do. I'm so bad at this. Anyway, these are looking pretty good. Made a bit of a rookie mistake and didn't like do a bevel on this edge, which basically means that all the foam is trying to come together like perfectly straight rather than at an angle like this, so that like it curves around my shoulder, because that's kind of what I want. But I think I'll be okay. I'm just gonna blast it with a heat gun and let it curve a little bit like that so it sits nicely around here. But I'm pretty happy with that shape. It's not a really big shoulder piece. I'm okay with it not being gigantic. I'm gonna have a helmet and a sword and shield in a little bit, so yeah. Time for some more deniming. Round number, I have no idea. I am not keeping track. I decided to add a couple more pieces to extend down the arm a little bit, and this whole thing is going to get attached on with some more Chicago screws, basically just straight through here, so that the whole thing will hinge a little bit as it's sitting on my breastplate. Okay folks, moving right along, my guy is going to need some props, so I'm going to start with a shield because it should be relatively easy. It is just a big flat thing. For this, we have the thick 10mm foam, and this is hard light. It is called hard light foam because it is hard and light, so it doesn't flex very much, but that's kind of what we want for a shield. So with my shield shape cut out, at the back here I'm going to put another rectangle of foam just to reinforce that shape, and these little straps here are going to form basically a handle that I can put my arm through. That is getting glued down with the contact adhesive outside, and for the front here, I'm going to use some different shades of denim to create this like 4-part heraldry. Is that the right word? Someone correct me in the comments. Good morning folks. Alright, we've reached a bit of a checkpoint. There's like 2 more things I need to make, but let's just see how it's all looking together. I'm sure you can pick up from my grin here just how proud I am of myself at this point. Aside from the back, we're gonna ignore that for now. Okay guys, look, a couple of times during me making this, I've stopped and looked at myself and thought like, why the am I making this? And I regret nothing seeing this so far. Like, oh my god, yes, absolutely. Okay, 2 more things to make, a sword and a helmet. I'm doing the sword first because the helmet's gonna be hard, so I'm procrastinating. At this stage, pretty much everything outside of this room is packed up. You can see like half my shelf behind me's gone. So scrounging around what remains in this house, this is what I've got, and it's like a balsa wood dowel, so it's not super strong, but it might serve as a good base for the sword. The first thing I did is wrap the whole thing in electrical tape to strengthen it and add a bunch of popsicle sticks to basically form a crossguard. I added some scrap foam to the crossguard and the handle just to bulk the whole thing out. With these longer shapes, I found it easier to wrap strips of denim around the pieces with the fabric glue rather than trying to like cover individual panels. The blade of the sword was more guesswork, but I had recently made Hornet's Needle, which is a weird sentence if you haven't played Silksong or Hollow Knight. But basically, I kind of had a good idea already of what kind of shapes I needed to make this blade. It boils down to basically 4 very long triangles cut out of that thicker foam, glued together in like a sort of diamond shape that's going to sit around that core. And for the core, you guys know how much I love hot glue. I'm going to cover this thing in hot glue and just shove it into the blade. Hot glue this time round is actually perfect because it can kind of fill in the gaps to make sure that this rod is stuck to that foam underneath. And then of course, more deniming. So, turns out trying to squeeze one last project in the final days of moving house was a little over ambitious. So I'm gonna go finish moving and we'll finish the helmet in the new place. So I'll see you after the time skip. I will admit guys, I was a little bit emotional packing up this set. I've had it for a few years now, but I'm excited for the next one. Okay folks, we are past the time skip. This is future Charlotte here, which I suppose is still past Charlotte for you guys watching from my future. Time is a weird soup. Anyway, I've moved house. This is my new room. I actually have 2 new workspaces this time. This one is kind of uncanny because it's sort of the same setup as my old place except for like flipped with a couple of things. I'm not going to do like a full-on tour of the new workspace. I actually already have that over on my Patreon. And if that seems like a subtle prompt to go join my Patreon, you're wrong. It's not subtle at all. Go join my Patreon. It is thanks to the people over on Patreon supporting me that I can do any of this at all. So thank you guys so much. And yeah. Please consider joining. Anywho, it has been like a month since I did any crafting and I am so keen to get back into it. So, we are going to make a knight's helmet, and for this, I'm actually going to use a pattern, would you believe? I found this awesome pattern for a cardboard knight's helm, and since I've never made anything that looks like a knight's helm before, I figured I could use the extra help trying to work out the shapes. This time round, I absolutely needed a mock-up because I have no idea what I'm doing. Like less than usual. Okay, so this kind of worked. I mean, it's floppy and all over the place because I've made it out of like paper instead of actual cardboard, and the scale's kind of weird, but I really just needed to see that it will work and how it will work. So that's a good enough mock-up for me. I'm going to get started on making this out of actual foam, which should hold its shape better. Hopefully, and we can muck around with it as we go. At this stage, you guys have had no shortage of watching me glue foam together and then glue jeans onto foam, so I'm probably gonna like breeze past this bit. Not to mention the fact that this pattern actually came with a video, so I will link both of those down below if you want to make a knight's helmet for yourself. So I'm not 100% convinced that I got the dimensions perfect, but I think these will do the job, so I'm gonna go with it. The final round of deniming begins, and there's a lot to this one because there's so many different pieces to the helmet. Not to mention, of course, a lot more curved shapes to work with. Okay, folks. Actually, you can probably barely hear me. I hope that's better. We have a finished helmet. I'm really happy with this. I think it's gonna be like the nice little centerpiece, the cherry on top of this whole suit of armor. That is gonna happen to me all the damn time. I might muck around with like trying to get some magnets or something so it doesn't keep falling on my face. But overall, like pretty damn happy with this shape. It's pretty comfy. And I really do think that having these like little trim details definitely helps sell it. So yeah, a couple of other things that I've made. Out of some of the leftover pieces, I made this very scrappy makeshift like patchwork cloak. This is literally mostly just going to cover the very back where that really dodgy looking lacing that's holding my torso piece together sits so that you can't see it. It'll get the job done. And with some more of my leftover pieces, I cut a bunch of them into strips and just braided them together. This is probably just going to get like tied around me. I figure it's going to be a good way to tie the shield and sword onto me when I want to like be able to use my hands, not just carry those things around. So yeah, I think with all of this, it's time for a reveal and see it all on together, hey? The cape of scrap fabric was definitely the right move. It hides a lot of those awkward attachment points at the back of the breastplate. I definitely need to reinforce a lot of the attachment points on this suit of armor because they're holding up okay now, but I'm not sure how well they're going to hold up after a lot of wear and tear and stress testing. But honestly, aside from that, everything is lightweight, it's really easy to move around in, like nothing's really weighing me down or restricting my movement. I think this one's a winner. As for putting it on and off, well, it's definitely doable. It would definitely be easier with a squire or something to help me out. To all of my cosplay handlers out there, thank you guys so much for everything you do. What would we do without you? Unrelated side note before the outro, but fit check on this amazing bootleg me shirt. This is made by a friend of mine, Mel, just literally for me as part of an in-joke sort of thing. But I did want to show it off because it does kind of slap. God damn you guys, I love making stupid projects so much. And not to get too serious on Maine, but the world is a really dark place right now, and it feels like it's only getting darker, and it also feels like there's very little I can do about that. And obviously there are things that I can do, but I also feel this drive to keep making ridiculous projects as kind of a way to not let the state of the world kill our sense of whimsy and wonder, because those are the kind of things that, I don't know, give me energy to keep fighting for a better future. I know that sounds maybe a little bit naive, a little bit airy-fairy, but that's how I feel. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly did. I am definitely wearing this to the first convention I go to this year. Speaking of which, bear with me a little longer for a couple of short announcements. Firstly, I'm going to Germany. The convention Animuk or Animuk, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, but is an anime convention in Munich that are having me as a special guest this year. That is from the 10th to the 12th of April. I can't believe my first international convention is all the way in Europe. Secondly, to my folks closer to home in New Zealand, I am coming to Armageddon in Auckland from April 25th to 27th. I really hope I get to meet some of you guys in Germany or New Zealand. Please come up to me and say hi if you see me. I promise I'm very friendly. The hard part's getting me to shut up. But details for both in the description below. I am so excited for these. Third thing, I commissioned my friend Hollow Inks to make these beautiful little illustrations of a feral crafting rat. He's even got a little bit of fragile tape hanging off his tail here, so I am absolutely in love with this. This sticker is available on my merch site now. The link is also down in the description. I've also got him on the tote bag because it just seems to work really well, like printed onto this like natural undyed fabric. I do want to put him on a t-shirt at some point. I ordered some samples, they weren't so great on the t-shirt, so I'll muck around with that a little bit until I can make sure that it's going to be good quality before it's up for sale. So I guess stand by for that one. A huge thank you to Lumin's workshop. They did supply me with all of the foam that you see in this build in the various sizes and types. I will have a link to their shop in the description below. They are of course my go-to. You guys hear me talk about them all the time. Huge thank you to my ultimate supporters. These are my top supporters on Patreon. Artemis, Residual Images, Mohegan Creates, Robert Mischief, Michael, Verilyn, and Yuri. Thank you also to these other amazing Patreon supporters you can see around my face. You should come join us over on Patreon. You can support me for as little as $2 and I post previews, work in progress, and exclusive mini videos you can't find anywhere else. Like this one where I upgraded my vampire ball gown, or this one where I made Fizzaroli's hat. Or this one where I made some weird neon demons. I even gave away the horns from this project to a few lucky Patreon members. And of course, joining is the best way to support me so I can keep making ridiculous projects like this. But even if you're here liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff that keep the YouTube robots happy, you are also supporting me. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!